This is To the Front. Tools for today's top agents.
Episode number 35 of To the Front. Well, I am glad you are going to be so glad that you tuned in today, whether you're coming and joining us from YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This is going to be an episode that when I bring on my guest, you're going to think, that was not on my bingo card today. You're going to think, no way, can't believe it. But it is true. And I think it's going to be one of the best episodes of the entire year. But let me start with this phrase, and maybe you've heard it before. And the phrase is this: what is free isn't cheap. Have you heard that before? You know, what is free isn't cheap. In other words, sometimes the price of something, even if it's a low price, it might entice us, or no price at all. But in the long run, it cost us more than we're willing to pay, or than we ever wanted to pay. In fact, I probably learned this going garage selling with my grandmother when I was growing up. And we would load up in her red Cadillac convertible, and she loved Puff Daddy. This is before he was Diddy. Okay, it was Puff Daddy. And we would load up in her red convertible, and we would go yard selling. And I remember we would fill that thing up with cheap stuff. And she was so excited because she thought she got a deal. But the reality is, every year in May, we would have a huge garage sale, and we would sell all the stuff that we bought at the garage sales for cheaper. So it actually cost us money and time. They were some good memories, but it reinforces the point that sometimes something that's free or cheap might actually make your life more difficult. So on today's episode, this is the title. Listen to this: The False Economy of Going Cheap. And we're going to talk about it specifically as it relates to software, and as it relates to the tools that you implement in your agency, in your business. And to talk about that, I am bringing on my friend. When I say my friend, I don't think I'm lying. All right, Seth Preus from from Racing Snail. Seth, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, Adam. You know, it's funny. I have to tell you, I do a lot of these podcasts, as I know that you do, and I've looked forward to this one more than any other podcast I've ever done.
Dude, awesome. That's exciting. That's exciting because if you're living under a rock and you don't know, I'm sure you know, Racing Snail, right, and Front Runner on many fronts do the same thing. So people might call us competitors, and they're like, why would on planet Earth would you be on a podcast together? And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But I will tell you, man, Seth Preus is no stranger to the industry. He is the founder of Myvation, the founder of their flagship product, Racing Snail, which is just an incredible product. It's the trailblazer, been over 20 years.
Yeah.
Has been serving and taking care of agents. Seth is a sought after speaker. All you have to do is go on YouTube and put his name in, and you're going to see him on different podcasts and different speaking endeavors. But man, Seth, I'm so glad you're here to talk about this subject of the false economy of going cheap. And I know you and I agree on a lot of stuff like that. Yeah. So, all right, how was that intro? Is that okay?
That was fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into this. This is going to be great.
Let's do it. You know, so here's the deal. Like I said, all right, we are, when I'm going to use quotation marks, we are competitors. Mm-hmm. And in other words, you know, we have some of the same customer base, but honestly, this podcast feels pretty natural to me. The reason it feels natural is because both of our companies just want to help agents do what they do better. We want to help inspire their team. We want to help them to understand their businesses, and we want to help them grow. And we also believe that there's enough business for everybody. That, man, that we're really pretty better together when we come together and say, all right, even though we might have the same customer base, if we do some things together and talk together and reason together and talk with agents together, we all win.
Right.
And Seth, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I do want to say right out of the gate, man, your team has been so kind to my team. And man, I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. In fact, I remember the first time we met, it was at a Tim Linden event, I think maybe in Orlando, right? And it was after a session or something. You came up and you're talking, and I was like, all right, here it is, you know, our biggest competitor. And I was like, I can't wait to not like this guy. And I walked away, I was like, I freaking like that guy. I was like, how do I not like this guy? And so ever since then, it's just been fantastic. Your team has been great to us, your sales team. I've gotten to meet them at other events, just absolutely top notch. And you're helping thousands and thousands of agents and team members across the country do what they do better. So I want to say thank you for that right out of the gate.
No, I really appreciate that. It's interesting because I'm not going to lie and say I was just thrilled when your company came on the scene. I wasn't happy about that at all, but I also understood it. We were going through some things at that time, and I got it. Like, believe me, I got it. And so I never had any animosity towards your company. And I also, and to give credit, I had a very positive relationship with the guy that did Smart Bonus,
Sure.
Big Galt, from years ago, and he was always very kind to me. And when Racing Snail started, we kind of rocked his world, and it made a big impression on me that he was so kind to me.
Yeah.
And I made that commitment that I would be the same way to others in the industry, because we're all, like you said, we're all trying to help people. We're going about it in slightly different ways. And there's no benefit in trashing each other or being angry towards any of the other companies, because we're all striving for the same thing. And frankly, the more of us that there are out telling the story that we tell about why this stuff matters, the better it is for all of us.
For sure.
Because when I first started, there wasn't a lot of knowledge about why some of the concepts that you and I talk about on a regular basis made any difference at all. So there's a lot of education that goes on, and it's hard if you're entering a new market where you have to educate the market about why they should use their product. That is a significant barrier to entry. Yeah. And so I have noticed over time, I've literally seen this, that as companies like Today App and Frontrunner, Visual Bonus, others are out there telling this story, you end up with a market that's more educated, and they understand it, they get it. You don't have to convince them that this is a good idea. And then it comes down to more of what's a good fit for you. And so to me, it seems like that has worked really well for all of us.
For sure. Absolutely. Because I know Racing Snail's, still excelling, still growing, still helping just tons of agents. And I agree with every piece of that, right? If the education level goes up at why you need some sort of a software to help in all the different things that we work through, the better we're going to all be, right? And then we all have a common thing too that we're going to talk about in this episode: the false economy of going cheap, right? Is there a reason to pay for the services that we offer? Is there rather than maybe a free solution? And right. I think there's some real reasons, and I can't wait to talk about that today. But before we do that, listen, Seth, you guys are one of the trailblazers of this whole thing. Would you say 21 years?
I think it is that long. Yeah. Wow. I think it's 21 years. Yeah.
21 years, man. That's to do anything in this life and be successful and be alive after 20 years is pretty doggone good.
Yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good. So walk us through a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, just before we get into the topic, about the journey over the last 20 years. I know you could probably talk for hours on that, but tell us, because again, you were one of the trailblazers.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how that looked, maybe some challenge that you had initially, helping agents sort of trust third-party software. So tell us a little bit of that story, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So we started. So I had a tech background. I'm not a programmer, although I did build the first version of Racing Snail, so I understand Boolean statements and complex Excel formulas, etc. Yeah. But we got started because I was a trainee agent at the time, and I was asked to fill out a form of our production. Then on a different page of this Excel document, I had to fill out the same information but horizontally. Okay, so one of it was vertically and the other one was horizontally. Like one I think was just like a total, and the other was over a course of days. And this took forever, and it was stupid. And so I had some good training in Excel. I automated it, and so I would spend half the time as every other agent that had to fill out this form. Well, they started demanding more information from us, and I would just keep automating it through the spreadsheet. And it got to the point where, I was spending a few minutes doing this every month, whereas other agents were spending a couple of hours. So I shared the spreadsheet, and it made its way through my group, then through the city, then through the state of Arizona, and then it started making its way around the country. And at that point, I took a step back, and I'm like, wow, like there's something here.
Yeah.
So I spent some time on it. It was very exciting, and we built out the first version of Racing Snail. It was just a tracker. It didn't do comp. Added nice colors to it. Figured out how to protect it so people couldn't screw it up.
Yeah, sure.
And then we launched at a show in Vegas from Tim Linden. He was enormously helpful to us. So it was at a Linden show in Vegas. And I'll never forget this because I was in the bathroom. It's like I'm like Eminem, I'm like almost hyperventilating. I'm pacing back and forth, filled with self-doubt. I literally thought I was going to throw up. My buddy Jerome, who's been my best friend and business partner for almost my whole life, he comes in. He's like, "Are you all right, man?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just going to go do this." And so I did the presentation, and I think we sold 80% of the people who were in the room.
Wow.
Now, part of the reason that we sold 80% is because we sold it for like $75 a year. Okay.
Wow.
So that was right. That was not super smart, but that was the beginning. And so we just kept adding to it from there. And, it spread to the point where we had several thousand agents across the country. And, it was challenging because it was all built in Excel. So it was one of the most sophisticated Excel documents I'd ever seen. It was like a suite of documents. So when we would roll out changes, if we messed it up, which you always have bugs in software.
For sure.
And that's, for people who don't know that, all software the first time it's rolled out has bugs in it.
Preach it. Come on.
So that's problematic when you send out disks to people. So we had to figure out a way that we could send out code updates. And so they would open what we called a fix-it file. And they would open it up and it would have a picture of a boot crushing a bug. And they would push that picture, and then it would go in and grab that document, open it up, unprotect it, rewrite the formulas, then reprotect it and shut it back down. And so that was one of the things I was most proud of, was being able to troubleshoot all these documents through these files. That's the kind of thing that we had to go through. I had to figure out how to get agents not to steal it because it was in Excel. And so we built in protections where the agent's name shows up on every single page. So there was a reason for doing that. I also figured out a way to create what I called a time bomb. So we'd always have these agents that were like, I'll get it 1 year, and then we'll just like copy it and form another version of it and then use it next year. That did not work. And so we had a countdown and everything, it's like, hey, you got to reorder. And one of my favorites was on a particular day when I knew the time bomb exploded. And it would not ruin the document. It would protect all their data, but it would stop it from continuing to be updated. And then we would get a whole bunch of calls like, hey, I guess I forgot to order this. So those were some of the, challenges. One, we had an agent that had just stolen the system completely. Wow. And called for support.
No way.
Yeah. And we figured out that it was the wrong agent. So we sent him a fix-it file that went in and did destroy the document. And then left a message that said, please call us to get your own account started. Amazingly, we did eventually actually do business with that agent years later.
Wow.
So it was a fun time. Like I was young, I was in my early 30s, and we got flown all over the place to do events everywhere. It was, it's so cool. You'd show up and be like, oh, you guys are the Racing Snail guys. And we did speeches everywhere. Keep in mind, I'm traveling with my best friend. We've known each other since we were 15. He's extremely charming. And so I think he may have gotten one sales manager disciplined for getting her up on a table dancing at a bar after a session one time. I mean, it was that kind of thing. It was just a lot of fun, making a lot of friends, and getting to know people all over the place. We had a very cheeky sort of attitude, which I feel like we've kind of lost a little bit over time as you get bigger and you get corporatized and all that. But we would regularly poke fun at ourselves when we mess things up. We would also poke fun at our clients, which is risky.
There's a tightrope there, right?
Right. But we would get away with that. And people liked that, that it was kind of, the name of the company is kind of ridiculous. And so we played off of that. So it was a good time. But as far as getting people to trust third-party software, it's interesting because the problems with that probably, or the challenges in that probably didn't start until later, and they're maybe a little bit different than you would have thought that they were. Yeah. So initially, there wasn't anything out there to do what we were doing. There was this one other company, but for whatever reason, people didn't gravitate toward it. I'll just put it that way. And so we didn't have to compete against anything. then so we had a lot of like support from insurance companies actually saying, hey, you guys, you agents should take a look at this. It wasn't until we started getting into a situation where we were integrating with where agents wanted integration. What they really want, they don't want integration, they want automation.
Automation, yeah.
But what they don't realize is that automation is only achieved through integration, and those are two very different things.
For sure.
And integration is in the technology world is a dirty word. It's like a cuss word. I mean, in fact, if you use the word integration with our CTO when it doesn't belong, he gets mad because he knows of all the problems that go with it. And so then what you end up with is where your trust issue starts to come in is between two different systems. And so then it's like, okay, this data came from over here, now it's over here, and it's not the same thing anymore. What's going on? Right. And that's been universal. We've been through several of these projects with large insurance companies, and it's not their fault. It's like they have a particular understanding of their data in the context in which it is used. And then when that data is moved into another system, it is now in a new context, and there will be things revealed about that data that were unknown.
That's right.
And so we had trust issues there in terms of like, is this correct? Now it's a little bit a different world because we have several of the companies that we work with have their own corporate systems that are in place. And as new agents come on board, they're familiar with those, or we didn't start with that. We didn't have that problem. And so now it's more of how can you trust our system versus an internally operated system? But for us, we have the advantage of having a lot of our clients were under the former paradigm. And so they don't necessarily have those. So is that something that you encounter on a regular basis?
Yeah, from an integration standpoint.
Or for just like the whole trust thing between an internal versus an external product.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think part of what we struggle with, at FrontRunner is, I guess just the word trust that the data that's in there is proper, is correct. Right. And you use the word, and I know it's probably not answering your question, but integration versus automation. Right. Because really the core of what we're talking about is time saving. Yes. Right. Like, does it save my team time? Does it make us more efficient? Right. Now, we've probably not had some of the things that you have because, I mean, again, we just serve captive agents. Right. And I know, Racing Snail's got captive, and then I know you guys have another part of the company that's independents and brokers and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say we've had some similar conversations, different but similar.
So there's the issue of like time in terms of like entering sales, which is one that I always got a kick out of, because like even if you take some of the largest agencies in the country that are writing just boatloads of apps, if you actually break it down per day per producer, it doesn't take that long. To enter sales. And then two, you are not dealing with corporate systems that may translate that data as it goes across somewhere. So there's multiple ways to look at it. I mean, ultimately though, what I find for users that are really engaged with the system is that they're paying pretty close attention to what they're seeing. One of the things, I'd be curious on your opinion on this, but like our sales entry screen, which is like in some ways one of the most boring parts of the system, but that's where people spend a lot of time, is just like looking at the sales
for sure
that have come in. And so, it's amazing what people can notice just from seeing those sales. So if you don't have that kind of, access to being able to see like what was done by whom, when, et cetera, there could be that trust issue about the data could exist, on internal systems as well. I mean, having easy visibility, transparency to the data right in front of you, as quickly as it comes in is a really big deal. And not all corporate systems have that.
No, not at all. Yeah, I will say the accuracy of the data 100%. When you kind of look at the heat map of where the traffic is, at least on FrontRunner, I would say at least 50%, maybe 60% is spent on that sort of data entry page. And it's but but we know it's not entry. It's more combing through it and looking at it and
Yeah.
double checking and those kinds of things. Right. And, what we're finding actually is a lot of agencies, and you probably see this as well, are letting their team put data in, manipulate data, but they almost always have somebody who comes behind and sort of double checks things, right? App checker, sometimes they call it, who just make sure that whatever data is in there is correct. Because you and I both know, junk in, junk out. If it's not right, it's not right. So, man, that's quite a journey over 20 years, getting to travel and seeing it go from an Excel platform to this robust, really incredible software that is just helping thousands and thousands of agents and team members across multiple companies, not just one.
Right.
And that's got to be really like rewarding to see.
It is. It's funny. I one time had somebody tell me that you never really feel successful, and that's definitely been true of me. I have in our company. I have to always remind myself of where we were. And you tend to. It's funny because I do a lot of motivational speaking, but a lot of my speaking is coming from a person who's sometimes kind of negative, to be honest.
Wow.
So I do speeches about the nature of motivation so that people can understand it. I'm not one of those happy clappy guys, but. As I look back at a lot of the challenges that we've been through, it does make me appreciate, what we've been through. Like when I first started, I had an early business partner when we converted over to the web who embezzled $40,000 from the company. And at that point, $40,000 was a heck of a lot of money. And frankly, it was my kids' college fund is really what that was.
Wow.
My wife served as our accountant, which she despised. Like she hated that stuff. And she's the one who discovered this. And I mean, so that's the sort of thing you have to deal with. Then one rollout of competing systems after the next, not the ones that were external were normally not as problematic. Like when we lost clients to external systems, it's kind of like, well, what did we do wrong? Right. But internal systems, at several companies, we've had internal systems roll out that weren't very good. And, they tried, but they weren't great. Well, we would lose a bunch of clients to those systems. Would we get a bunch back? Yes. But would we get them all back? No, we never got them all back. And so you ended up with people who were just kind of using nothing. They'd go use the corporate system. We went through that several times, and that can be very demoralizing. But, it's pretty rough. But what I have learned, I used to freak out all the time, and Jerome would get frustrated with me because I would hear some rumor about this or that, and I'd be just like, the sky is falling. And now I've learned to temper my fears a little bit and just wait. I have a phrase that I'd like to tell anybody I work with, which is, don't panic until it's time to panic.
Boy, that's a great way to live.
Yeah, you got to just wait and see if it's really a problem, because otherwise you can spend your whole time like worrying about things that aren't actually a problem. And so as I look at how we've grown across so many different companies, I've seen that same up and down, but we're still going up. So it has been rewarding. I appreciate you asking about that. But it's definitely not one of these things. And I think this is probably true of a lot of businesses, where it's not one of these things where you're like, wow, this was a piece of cake. I mean, it's just like,
that's not,
just turned the key on and, drove away, and it hasn't been that way at all. So it's good for me to take a step back and be like, you know what, we've actually come a fairly long way.
100%, and especially when we're talking about our customers, your customers, I mean, they're trusting us with their business on so many levels, right? They're trusting us to make sure that commissions are correct, that the activities, right? I think on your front, the checktivity stuff is correct. All of the reports and forecasting and all those things, that they're making decisions based upon what data is displaying in our system, can be a heavy load. I mean, it really can. And which segues me into what our topic is today, which I think is so important, right? It's this false economy of going cheap, right? And you brought up a minute ago, and I'm really glad you did, is that there are oftentimes company systems that come up, or some sort of a system that comes up that's free, or that it's so cheap it might as well just be free, right? And then what we find is that these agencies will obviously there's something enticing about it to say that, hey, this is not going to cost me money, right? And what I found, I'm going to ask you the same question, is that they tend to not think about the other things that it costs them, right? Because I know the conversations that we have every single day here in our office, and your all's team does as well. Just the long conversations, sometimes on the phone or on a Zoom or on a Teams meeting, where we're intricately going through things and helping agents to understand why this data looks that way. And well, heck, maybe for you guys, it even turns into almost a consulting session sometimes on growth
Often,
of an
right.
agency. And then when we have a subscriber that goes for a free option that doesn't have any of those consulting or support or even a third of the features, my heart hurts, because I know that the entice of free or cheap is a false economy. I know it is. And so I want to ask you, I mean, why is it so enticing? Why is the lure so attractive of price sometimes when we're looking at, okay, what is the software that's going to help me manage my
Yeah.
agency? Why are we seeing this some?
So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because we had another tool that we built that was an absolutely incredible tool, and we did a bunch of pilots with large corporations, some of them outside of the insurance industry, some of them inside the insurance industry, and we hit it out of the park 100% of the time.
Yeah.
The changes were so dramatic that we wouldn't even tell them what we were anticipating because we knew they wouldn't believe us.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, that product ended up not succeeding because it was what we call it was a vitamin rather than a pain pill. And this has been a very difficult lesson for me, is that people will buy pain pills all day long, but selling vitamins is exceedingly difficult.
Wow.
And so, so when you look at the core products that we share, the product that we share, I think there's three things that cause people to make decisions that may not be in their best interest. First of all, I want to say that most people are not entirely rational about money. And that's not just people, that's also corporations. I have seen this firsthand with large corporations. So, but there's three things. One is about opportunity costs. The second is about the prioritization of eliminating pain versus long-term gain. And the third is about the cumulative effect of our decisions.
Yeah.
So if we start with that first one, people are bad at evaluating opportunity costs. So if a friend of yours, says, "Hey, I've got an all expenses paid trip to Hawaii for you," and you know that to go on that trip, it means you're going to miss a family reunion. It's very easy for you to know what your opportunity cost is there.
That's right.
If you go to the reunion, you miss Hawaii, and vice versa, right? It's easy to evaluate. But if a lot of our decisions, it's not that clear. So let me give you an example outside of business. And this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I learned it because I was one of these people. So I'm not poking fun at others, but so I'm sitting waiting in the line at Costco to get gas. Okay. And why am I sitting there? So I can save like 20 cents a gallon on gas. And I look over and I see, and the lines are big. So we're going to be here a while. And I see $100,000 Cadillac Escalade. And I start thinking to myself, okay, $100,000 Escalade, that person hopefully makes a bare minimum of $200,000 a year.
For
We've
sure.
got a whole other financial problem there, which means they make about $100 an hour. So if it takes 15 minutes to get through this line, that's roughly $25 worth of their time, so that they can save $10.
Yeah.
Why would you make that decision? And then I started thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not driving a $100,000 car, but I certainly have a very similar economic equation that I could run on my own. Why am I sitting here? and that was the end of it for me.
Yeah.
So now I'll get gas at Costco if I'm there and there's no line. But otherwise, my time is more valuable. But people make these kinds of decisions all the time, where they don't realize that they're wasting something very valuable in order to save something that's much less valuable. So with systems like ours, one of and we talked about this before we got started, but you'll have a lot of people that maintain their own spreadsheets. We see this especially, it's very common on the independent side of the fence too, where they're maintaining massively complicated spreadsheets. Well, you and I both know how much it takes to keep programming running correctly. And as soon as you start getting anything complex, you're inserting bugs like we just talked about. Now you're the one who created calculation errors, in spreadsheets that you're using with your people. But let's back up. Why are you doing that? Like, why are you spending your time working on a spreadsheet when you should be selling insurance and running your insurance agency? I mean, this is a mistake that I made, that I will fully admit that I didn't know what I was getting into when I started tinkering around with Excel. And so when those came behind me who were doing the same thing, I would tell them, you can do it, and it sounds self-serving for me to tell you, just don't do that, but trust me, this is, unless you want to really, really go for it, you're going to just be wasting your time. And so, we see those kinds of trade-offs. But the other thing that we see is we don't understand, if you take something that's not as good, then you have to look at, well, what does that mean? And if that means as little as like just one car a month, okay, if with the way that commission or the premiums are today, that's roughly $2,000 a year.
A bit.
10% is around $200. So what you're sacrificing is $200 potentially bare minimum, because you don't want to pay right now, which leads to my second point, which is people prioritize short-term pain over long-term gain.
Yeah.
Shifting gears to the outside of business, fitness is one that I love to talk about.
That just hit my mind. Yes.
Yeah, right. It's about like doing things that make you uncomfortable right now.
Yeah.
It occurred to me about 2 months ago. I've been working out my whole life and I'm in very good condition. And I'm at the gym and I'm like, I hate this. I'm like, I don't like it.
Unless you're some kind of masochist, of course you're going to hate it. You should.
Right. And I commented to some other people about it, and they're like, and there was, others were like, I don't like it either. But it's one of these things that you do because you get these other benefits. And with these tools, people tend to prioritize that pain of what they feel like that it's costing them, and not realizing the gain that they're getting over time. Because like even in the example of one car, you're paying for the tool right now. It comes out of your on your credit card, whatever.
That's right.
And so it's very focused cost. You see this cost. Well, let's assume that tool works well and you get that one extra car. Well, that extra car, the commission for that, first of all, it's probably split in two pieces because it's 6 months premiums. And then it just shows up in your paycheck mixed in with everything else.
Yeah.
And so what I encourage people to do, and not just for this, but in a variety of circumstances, is to really dig a little bit deeper and analyze, like, okay, but what does this mean? If I say yes to this free thing, what am I saying no to? Because that's how it works. And so if you are saying no to any level of increased performance at all, if you are saying no to an increased level of transparency that makes your team comfortable, like suddenly they don't know what's going on and they become uncomfortable. This is a huge issue that we deal with in the independent
That's
world,
right.
because they don't understand why they're getting paid. And so if you can't answer those questions, you're going to experience a drop in morale and potentially in production and certainly in productivity, because if they don't trust it, they start doing their own calculations, et cetera.
That's correct. And we know that most, if not all, of sort of the freebie sort of solutions out there do not offer transparency like that.
No, right.
And we know you're right. I give a little talk sometimes about sort of the top 5 common threads of bonus plans that work. In fact, I think that might be where we talked about, where I think you might have sat in that session or whatever. And one of those things is that if your team doesn't know how they're paid, it demotivates them.
Absolutely. Right.
It demotivates versus clarity, right? And I was told one time that the best thing that you can offer your customers or anybody is clarity. It's not a great product, it's clarity. And so the best thing that you can offer your team is clarity.
Yeah, so you're hitting right on the fundamental topic that I talk about for compensation at all, because in a lot of my presentations, I'll start with, well, why do we do this at all, right? Why do you pay commissions at all? Why not just pay them salary, right?
That's right.
We pay them commissions because we think it makes a difference, right? Okay, but let's back up. Why does it make a difference? We think it makes a difference because it changes their behavior, right? Ultimately, that's what we're doing, is we're trying to give them an incentive that causes them to make different decisions. And so if you don't have that clarity, like you're talking about, they don't have the ability to make those decisions. It's not necessarily even that they don't want to. It can be that they don't have the ability to, because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
That's right. There are multiple 7-figure lottery winnings that go unclaimed every single year in every single state.
Really?
Yes, it's crazy. And so I happened to find, I stumbled across an article. It was like North Carolina, and they had like $7 million in unclaimed lottery winnings, and several of them were 7 figures. There's only one reason that people don't claim lottery winnings. They don't know they won.
They don't know they won. Was it they don't
Right,
know
they don't
how to read the ticket? They lost the ticket.
Right. Yep. And so that's the only thing. And so it's like, otherwise you'd go collect that money. But that same concept applies when you're talking about productivity management. If they don't know where their production is today, then they don't know what they need to do to get it to where they need it to be to earn X amount of money, to hit a goal, to hit a financial incentive, et cetera. So the key is that they have to have the data so that that data can influence them to make decisions.
That's right. That's right. And I like your second point. You talk about people will prioritize short-term pain over long-term sort of gain, right? And it's a phrase that, which I love that phrase. I might steal it and not give you credit. Just want you to know. If you listen to this podcast and I say that, and I actually mind, no, it's not. But another way I've heard that say is sort of choose your hard, right? Like life is hard, right? But when it comes to working out, right, it is hard to work out, but it's also hard to be overweight and unfit and short of breath, right? Choose your hard, right? With eating, right? It's really hard to say no to the cake and yes to the salad, but it's also very, very tough to know what happens when our cholesterol and stuff is all out of whack and we have, diabetes. And so it really is a choose your heart. So when it comes down to saying, okay, do I want to go with a piece of software, a tool that I pay for, that I know is just incredible. It gives me transparency. It motivates my team. It's proven to do that. It's proven that when my team uses it, we are a better agency, right? Of choosing that sort of long-term to say, but hey, I'm going to pay that bill every single month or every year, depending on how it works. And seeing that come out of your bank account, right? Yeah, that can be hard, right? Yeah. But you're right. I think people don't realize the real hard. It's much harder that they don't see that you're missing sales, you're missing opportunities to motivate your team, to give them transparency. So it's kind of like a choose your hard.
Yeah, it's really good. It's funny because you segue nicely into my third issue that people underestimate with this is the accumulated impact of their decisions. Like people don't tend to understand compound interest, right? Like it looks like it's just a little bit right now, but then over time it makes such a difference. And so so for health and fitness, for instance, I have a house down in Nicaragua, and it's on the ocean, and it sits on a promontory overlooking a beach. And I've got a pathway that I had built down with steps. Well, there's no way around that this house is 300 feet above the ocean. So if you want to go down to the beach, you got to go down 300 feet and then come back up. And so we do that. I had a bunch of my buddies down there. And I don't even care if they hear this because they deserve to hear this. So, and so we're walking back up and they're huffing and puffing and we've got to take a break, every few minutes. I'm 52. We're all the same age. Okay. So, and it takes us a while. They're complaining constantly, they're nonstop. So later we're having drinks on the deck and they're talking about fitness or something like that. And they're like, well, Seth, how many pull-ups can you do? And I'm like, I could probably do about 35. And they're like, wow, that's incredible. And I'm like, you know what's incredible? I could walk up a freaking hill. That's incredible. So my point is that like, that's the accumulation of a lot of decisions along the way. Like you say, like choose your hard, right? Like now it's hard. And, I give them grief over this because it's like, it's not going to get any better. So if you are struggling to go up and down those stairs, like think about what that means. Like for me, that would be a huge deal because it means that every time I want to go to the beach, I'm like, oh man, can I really do that? Yeah. So you've got to consider, what the long-term impact of that is. Well, let's take it back to business. Let's go back to my example for the one car. Insurance, this is particularly important because it's a renewal business. So if you're talking about one car per month, the total of that over 4 years, let's see, I've got it pulled up here. Give me a sec.
Yeah.
So over 4 years, that's $36,000.
Unbelievable.
So that's what you need to think about. Like you're sacrificing a little bit now each month is going to have a really big impact down the road.
Right. But you can't see it in the first month.
That's exactly right.
Say you switch to that free option or whatever, or you drop the tool altogether and you're literally going back on a whiteboard and putting it up in your office. You don't see it in the first month because you're like, yeah, we kind of did the same. But what happens is the cumulative effort
Right.
can be seen in both numbers and in maybe part of the sort of DNA, the chemistry of your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy, that's powerful. So let me ask you, those are three really, really powerful things that if you catch nothing else on this episode, I want you to think about that, because we're not just talking about a software, a tool, right?
No,
Hey,
right.
I'm going to stick with Racing Snail or Front Runner over that other free option, right? It really almost is anything in your office that you pay for that costs you something that your team finds value in. And there's that little pull to say, could I just not do that? Now,
Exactly.
there are
Yeah.
some things truly you can just ditch. It's probably not going to matter. Okay. But the reality is, though, that the things that your team finds value in, that you're making an investment, you may not feel the sting in the first month or two, but you sometimes will see. No, sometimes I can tell you definitely will
Oh
see
yeah.
sort of a lowering of. I don't think morale is too big of a word. There is a
No.
morale, and we'll talk about that in a second, right? But I want to throw this word out there, and I want you to kind of respond to it if you don't mind, Seth.
Sure.
We'll say, all right, well, I'm going to go with this free option because it's it's pretty simple. It's just good enough. All right. So the idea of good enough,
Right.
when somebody on your team says, it's good enough. That's good enough. Yeah. Like if one of your developers said, hey, we're going to build this great new feature, and it was a little bit weird, but you're like, it's good enough. Let's roll it out. Like tell me,
Yeah.
respond to that thinking of why is good enough sometimes an acceptable phrase for us? And
So
they use it to rationalize cheap or free.
right. And I think I always want to put myself into the other person's shoes, so
Sure.
that am not like totally dismissive or condescending. But if you think about it, like if you really want to be good, if you want to really master your art,
Yeah.
would you ever consider that you're good enough? Like you think about some of the best people, like in the sports world, like Michael Jordan. Do you think Michael Jordan ever said, "I'm good enough"?
Yeah.
No, of course not. He always wanted to be better.
That's right.
And so when you say something like that, where it's good enough, and you believe that this thing is oriented around changing behavior, which
Yeah.
I would hope that they would be in agreement that otherwise you shouldn't pay commissions. If you don't think that these things work on behavior, you should not pay commissions.
For sure.
But if you believe that, then it would seem that you should want it to work absolutely as well as it possibly can.
That's right.
Now, obviously, there can be, if somebody says, "Hey, this thing costs $1 million a month," you know that there's no way that it can be good enough to make
Sure.
a difference.
For sure.
But we're not talking about that. I mean, these tools are actually quite inexpensive. There's one of the you probably aren't as aware of this because you're on the captive side, but there's a very big difference between perception and how much these tools should cost between captives and independents. I mean,
Sure.
it's quite a bit different, because a lot of captive agents are spending $3,000 to $10,000 a month on technology or more.
Right.
Sometimes that 10 grand is on a single application. So
Wow.
we're not talking those kinds of money. We're this is pretty simple. Like when you come back to the example I used before, we're talking one car, and we can see that with those numbers I gave, those are unnecessarily high. It really could be like one car every 3 months, and you're still going to be coming out ahead by thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that blows my mind. We're talking about one night out of eating out, one date night a month with your spouse. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Or depending upon, where you're buying leads, it might be, 4 or 5 leads, something like that. I don't even know how much they cost these days.
One day. I know agents who are spending $150, $200 a day.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah.
Or more.
Right. Which I always find it's interesting if you're willing to spend that kind of money on the leads, but then not spend any money to be able to know whether the leads are working well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the idea of getting better, right? Because there really are two mindsets that I've seen primarily, right? Is what is going to be in terms of what they see as the most important thing, or what they value the most. And I've seen businesses that what they value the most is saving money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they value the most is growing, right? And I'll be honest with you, I've never really seen anything in between. And the reality is a lot of people will say, well, yeah, there's a lot of agents who are just kind of coasting and not really super engaged. Well, I can tell you they value saving money, right? Or saving something because they don't want to put anything else into it. I would not disparage them. That's 100% their choice. Right. But that is not, the other mind frame is to say what we value most is to grow. Because what happens when we grow? We put our families in a better position. We put those that we employ in better position. And I'm going to tell you, there can be nothing better to use our life than to make somebody else's life better. And I'm not trying to be kitschy or cathartic for just those reasons, but truly, and you've probably experienced this the same way, Seth, is that when we can figure out how to put the people that serve us in our companies in better positions themselves, it's incredibly fulfilling. It's incredibly fulfilling. More than making the extra buck or saving the extra buck, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been through over the 20-something years times where we weren't sure we were going to be able to pay people.
Yeah.
We've had to fire friends. Fire is not a good word. Lay off friends because we couldn't afford to pay them. One of them twice.
Yeah, sure.
He still works with us. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I 100% agree with you. Growing, as an agency or growing in any business, you're making a better environment for everybody. And one of the things about working with insurance agents is that I really do think that they're more oriented towards helping people than your average business person.
Yeah, sure.
Well. And that's why it's actually a very nice industry to work in. There are fewer jerks in the insurance industry than there are in most industries. And I know that because I come from technology where there's lots of jerks, and insurance is much better than that. And so I think, having that mindset, it also applies to, taking care of their clients as well. And in taking care of clients, that means making sure that they're properly insured, which means that you're doing the correct activities and maintaining contact with them. And so I agree with you that you tend to have agents that are either looking to grow or looking to save money. But we'll spend a lot of time talking to agents that are looking to save money to also convince them that this is a way that you can save money, right? Because by using tools to help influence behavior, to make sure that your team is not, letting, because no one wants, even the agents that are coasting, they say if you're coasting, you're going downhill, right? No one wants to go downhill. No agent out there wants to shrink.
Sure.
I know plenty of them that are perfectly happy with staying the same. But the thing about staying the same in insurance, because they're losing clients, is that you have to keep producing. So even if you want to stay the same, it still makes sense to use tools to influence the behavior of your team to make sure that they're holding on to those people that you have currently and trying to get new ones.
That's a great point. So really there's space at the table for all of those types of agents.
Right.
Grow, stay the same. Right. And you also, something that was, I think, really profound as well. You said that our software helps you say it actually saves you money. And that's actually true. That was one of your points earlier, is that it actually saves your opportunity cost, or what you might consider your soft costs.
Yes.
Like we'll have agents, I'm sure you have too. One of the most fulfilling things that we hear at Front Runner is an agent says, it used to take me a half a day or 2 days to run commission, and I just did it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, if we're saving you time, we're really making you money.
Oh, absolutely. So
on the independent side, we're saving you money.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other ways too that I'll tell you in a second. But on the independent side, one of our clients, she told us the other day that she used to spend 80 hours a month. That's how bad it is on the independent side. It's really difficult, 80 hours a month. And now it's like an hour or something like that. And so obviously there's massive savings there, but there's savings other places too. Like one time when I first got started, there's a big agent out in Texas, super successful, like very, very suave, charming guy. He flew me out and had me set up the office and if you'll have to permit me to tell a funny story here because I'll never forget it. But he had me come out there, set up his office. And within 2 months, he had turned over 3 of his team members. Wow. Because he discovered that some of these people were costing him more just in salary than they were earning in commissions, And so he had massive savings between 3 people. I mean, it was enormous. But anyways, so when I'm out there, this is not business related, but I think it's funny. He takes me to lunch. Okay, I'm probably 32. Huh. He takes me to Hooters for lunch. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not just any Hooters. It's the Hooters where his daughter works, and his daughter is the server for our table.
No, come on.
And I'm like,
that's wild work right there.
I called my wife right away. I'm like, you won't believe what I just went through. That's one that you got to get out there fast. Right.
That is weird.
That is a little bit odd. Yeah. But back to my original point. there's all these other ways, I mean, whether it could also be just identifying lead sources that aren't working particularly
Yeah.
well, or, you have an activity tracker too. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what your data shows you, but the data for us shows that activities are enormously
Huge.
influential on what people do, right? It's the checker gets what the checker checks. And so if
Huge.
you're paying attention to what they're doing, you get more of it. All of those things end up, like, don't even look at sales. But if you've got, for instance, like one of your activities is to schedule policy reviews, and by
Yeah.
doing that, you're making sure that you're scheduling X number of policy reviews every month. Your retention is going to be better.
That's right. That's right.
Turn my camera off for a second to get this thing to refocus. I apologize, but
No, that's great. No, hey, kind of while you're doing that, I'll tell you you're right. Part of what you're getting oftentimes in some of these paid tools is not just, hey, we're going to help you calculate your commissions, but the activity tracking, the way that the reports give you insight, and just the robust tools that are in there that from a vacuum, you're saying, hey, I just want to save some money because I just want to get my commissions done and get past, right? But what you're also losing is your team having access to all the other tools. It's the little things every day that help them to win the day. And when you, so to speak, win the day, they typically will tend to win the month. I talk to team members all the time, and they're so focused on the end result.
Right.
And I said, hey, I think you're too far ahead. I said,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you just need to do today? Heck, what do you need to do in the next hour to win the hour? Because what happens then is you start stacking wins. And a great solution that's by, reputable companies, and there's multiple in our space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Help your team to do that.
Yeah. You're focusing on what they can control, right? Like, what can you do right now? Because you can't just sell something, but you can pick up the phone and make a phone call. You could send an email, etc. So that you're dead on.
That's right. That's right. Hey, let me turn to one more quick topic before we sort of talk about, I think maybe the last thing, which I'm most excited about, is the idea of how important support is. One of the things that we really pride ourselves in, I know Racing Snail is the exact same way. I know the same thing for Today app and, some of the other players in the game, is the ability for our agents to reach out to us and talk to us, and how important that is versus a do-it-yourself mind frame, right? Because a lot of, again, your freebie, your cheap solutions are a do-it-yourself type thing, right? And some folks, when they're feeling especially motivated, like, yeah, I'm going to get in there and do that, and fine, great, right? But what I found is almost as equal value as just the motivating the team is that when an agent needs us or a team member needs us, that there's a way that they can get a hold of us, and it's pretty quick. It's oftentimes right away. And so that is incredibly important because and I know we spend time with agents every single day. There's so many demands on their time. And the last thing that they want to do is sit there and wait on the phone or wait for an email back that's going to take forever, or whatever the case may be. Or, hey, I got to try to figure this out on my own. No, support is so important.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the number one reason why when people, for a front runner, will go to another platform, a free platform, they come right back. And they were at a grandfathered price, so they're paying more. They come right back because they're like, man, I just couldn't do it on my own.
Oh, yeah.
So how important is the support factor in understanding that the false economy of going cheap? How important is that?
Well, it's essential, and I can speak from painful personal experience on this, because the easiest way for me to understand how important it is to evaluate what happened at Racing Snail when our support was not good. So we had a couple of times years ago where we had large integration projects, and they could be a wonderful thing, but at the same time, they almost break the company as you're going through it, and our service level slipped, and we lost clients. In fact, my guess is that when we trade clients between the three of us, it's often associated with temporary problems that we may be having with support. And because I've noticed this from others where we get people and it's from a particular company and then it stops. And then that whatever was going on there has been fixed, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so that's become critically important to us. We're now overstaffed with support people all the time. whereas we spent a lot of time understaffed for a while, and we paid dearly for that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm sure you've got a lot of clients that were ex-Racing Snail clients that left us during times when they couldn't get support. I mean, it was horrible. And so, I don't know how I could make a stronger case than that, because that's for what we have experienced. Like, we could like see the numbers and know that this has happened. And then what, to your point, we just got one client back the other day that had gone to a corporate system, and they had managed to catch what would have been a $600 mistake.
Wow.
Which is another way that we could talk about, saving money, et cetera. And there's no way to figure it out. So she spent she would have spent $600, but she caught it and then spent about 4 hours trying to troubleshoot it.
Wow.
And then she's like, I'm out. And so she came back to us. So support, and this is something state or the insurance agents can relate to. And that is, you don't, in insurance, they say you don't care about claims until you have one, right?
Have one. Wow.
That's actually what you're paying for, is the claim. And that's when it really matters. That's when your clients will judge you on whether or not you're worth it. And the same is true with support with these programs. Like, you can say that it won't matter, you'll just figure it out, until it really, really matters. And you can't figure it out. And you've got 5 angry team members who are wondering why they're not being paid properly, and you don't know why. That's a level of hassle and just stress that you don't want to deal with.
That's right. You are an insurance agent who is insuring lives.
Right.
You're not the tech. I mean, maybe you are the tech person, but that's not what makes you money.
No, exactly.
Like figuring out how the little bells and whistles work doesn't put any money in your pocket. In fact, it takes money out. Right. So why would you want to burn your time doing that? Because in the temporary sort of bubble of, oh, I'm saving $100 or $150, $200 a month, it kind of temporarily makes sense. And I bet you I've got 30, 40, 50 stories of that exact story that I'm sure you've got more than that, of people who said, you know what, I tried it. Please, and come and take my stuff back over. Why? Because support is so incredible. Think about it like this. When you choose a paid solution with incredible support, you're actually getting another sort of team member in your office.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, because we are coming alongside all these companies, right? Racing Snail, Front Runner today, where we are coming alongside, and we care maybe even more than you do that your stuff's right.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
That we get it right. And so you've got somebody who cares deeply about that. And so that's so important. So, all right, let's hey, I've taken a ton of your time, Seth. So I'm so grateful for it. But I want to turn a little bit to the future, because we've got some great reasons why you want to stick with Racing Snail, Front Runner, Today app. So we got some great reasons that we want to give to you, but in a lot of it too is even about the future, about some things that are coming. And so let's talk about that a little bit, right? So maybe first, and again, you can take it wherever you want to. And like we've already talked a little bit about how we believe software is an investment rather than an expense, right? But frame that up a little bit for us, Seth, if you don't mind. How can agents start to reframe that in their mind, and maybe even give them some enticing reasons why to believe that?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a tough one. Like, frankly, like it's, especially as I've looked at, working in the independent world versus the captive world. In the independent world, the tool that we offer there is a pain pill. Like, it's very clearly a pain pill because they can't stand it. And we use technologies to auto process. It's not really based so much on doing productivity management. It's much more administrative, frankly.
Sure.
On the captive side, it is a bit more of a vitamin, in that it makes you healthier, it makes you stronger. And so what I always encourage agents to do is to, going back to the conversation we've had before, is to think about the long-term consequences of a marginal difference. So if something is marginally better in terms of that it increases your production, it increases your retention, or it increases the morale of your team. Any three of those things, if it does any of those even slightly better, at the current cost that these things are today,
Yeah.
you're going to be much better over the long haul, especially when you consider the support like you talked about, because at any given time, you could end up with this project that is foisted on you. And of course, it's an emergency, right? Because before payroll. And so you've got to drop everything else you're doing and do that. And so I think from thinking about it from that perspective of that, you really are making an investment that is going to impact, not just your pocketbook, but your these other things like the satisfaction that your clients may have with your office. Like any of these things that you can influence the behavior of your team is going to have a long-term compounding impact upon your agency.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll tell you, and I know that people probably may have mixed reactions to this, but when I look at the names of the clients that we have at all of the companies that we support, it is a who's who of agents that are making it rain in the insurance industry. So I think that the numbers change because the agents change and stuff like that. But on any given time, we will often have the number one agency in multiple insurance companies. The number two, number three. We'll have a huge portion of the top 100 in any company. That's got to tell you something. These are the people who, some of these guys are really smart. I've been very impressed by the analytical capabilities of a lot of these agents, where they truly think about this as a business. And so they have made a concerted effort to invest in tools that they believe make them better. And, I can show you, and I'm sure you have this too, I can show stats, like mathematics stats of how people use the application and how their performance differs from others who don't use that stuff. I can prove it.
Absolutely. In fact, I bet you if we put, I don't know this for a fact, but I know how many of the top 100 in a specific company that we have. And I have to imagine that you have the same amount. If you put those two together along with probably Today app, I bet you we have, this is a guess. I could bet you we have 75%.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Of the top 100, maybe even the top 500, right? Because you're right. Agencies that are at the top are investing in tools that help them to do what they do better.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a pretty strong endorsement. It's not just one or two. It's like all of them. It's like,
all of them. All of them. Yeah. Like I'm sure there's out there. I'm sure we might have an agent listen to this. Like, I'm in the top 100 and I use paper and pencil. And I'm like, well, awesome. I'm so glad. Right. That's great. Right. But,
it's a trend.
Say, well, Adam and Seth, you're just salty because you don't want to lose customers. And, I can truly say right now, salty is not like, it doesn't even feel salty. My thing is that I want agents to excel. And I just see that when we make these temporary sort of decisions based off what you call temporary pain, like pain pills, it's going to affect your ranking and how well you're doing. Right. And so, it's, if all these top agents have this thing in common, I really don't think they're wrong.
Probably something to it. Right.
Yeah. I really don't think they're wrong. And sure, there might be an outlier who's putting their stuff up on a whiteboard or whatever. Right. But I can guarantee you, if they're not using our software, they are investing in other things that are costing them money that are making their team great.
Sure. Absolutely.
I can guarantee you that. I guarantee that. Okay. So, let's wrap up. Let's talk about the future, like what does the future hold for our industry? When I say our industry, I don't mean insurance. I mean the industry there's a bunch of us who have tools. It's not just compensations and trackers, right? It's recruitment tools and not lead management, like lead generation stuff. What does the future look like for third-party vendors? And I would say even specifically, what's the future look like for us?
For us, yeah. And so we'll have our areas of focus. Each of us that'll be a little bit different, and we'll keep iterating and making improvements. My company went through a kind of a dry period for a while because of some massive projects, but we're going to re-engage over 2026 with making marginal improvements. Fine, but I see a paradigm shift coming, and I see that what's going to happen is that the insurance industry is aging right now, As agents get older, and people go, why do people start their own business? They start their own business primarily for two reasons. They want to make more money and they want more autonomy. They want more freedom. So the problem, of course, with this is that in order to have money, you have to work really hard, which means that you don't have a lot of autonomy for many, many years. Well, as the agents get older, they're going to want some of that autonomy back.
That's right.
And so what I see is very much what your question about support is a very good segue. What I see is companies like ours offering fully managed services for commissions, where if an agent wants to take time off and they want to keep their agency running, they feel a sense of responsibility to the carrier that they work with and to their clients and to their employees, which they should and do, that they will want to keep that going and keep performing, but they want to be able to take some time off. So if somebody wants to go to Thailand, they can, which is not just a different time zone. I mean, it's like a different time of the, it's nighttime there when it's daytime here, et cetera. I mean, it's difficult that they can do that while knowing that companies like ours are completely taking care of this commission side. We're paying attention to what we need to on performance, on trends, on warning indicators, on things that need to be brought to attention, distilling it, giving it back to the agent in an easily digestible form that they don't need to be engaged with if they don't want to.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about that.
So, well, I think that's where it's going to go, because you're going to have agents that they don't want to retire, but they want to keep the agency running well, but they don't want to do everything. It's annoying when you have to go and, like, if you're lying on the beach somewhere and now suddenly you've got to take a break to run payroll and figure out commissions and all that kind of stuff. Like, you're not in vacation mode anymore, especially as soon as you get the first question of like, well, why am I not getting paid on this? Or how come I didn't hit my bonus? I've got enough sales, right? And there's some reason in there that you've got to go track down. But if we handle all of that, so that the team member instead calls us up and says, hey, how come I'm not hitting this? And we're like, well, you didn't hit it because this policy didn't issue yet, right? Oh, okay. Now we can go run commissions.
We're taking that off of your shoulders.
Exactly. Right.
Interesting.
And that is something that you're never going to get from a company-sponsored solution.
Never.
So fully managed, we will handle this part for you and make sure that you don't need to worry about your commissions. I've got a pretty strong feeling that we're going to see a larger and larger pool of agents that want to have that kind of care. That's
right. That's right. I mean, we're going to take that burden right off of you, right?
Right.
And sure, there's going to be some costs associated with it, but I think it sounds like you could probably frame it to where it's going to easily make sense.
Oh, absolutely. I think it'll be a no-brainer. I think for a lot of agents, because you're right, there is an increased cost because you have to have more support to do that. And then it's up to us to figure out how to make that efficient. But I think that from their angle, the amount that they pay for that hands-off, don't have to worry about it, is going to be massive, especially if we do a good job of doing what we say we do, right? Which is making a difference in the performance of their agency. If we can do that, if we can continue to do that, and then we can prove it to them, and they can just be like, okay, I'm going to now enjoy the fruits of my labor that I have put in for decades. They're going to love that. They're absolutely going to love it.
Well, so it's taking that idea of we're an extension of your team to the next level.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And to the next level. And there would be inherent trust because they're like, well, that's your platform. So you understand it way better than we can.
That's exactly right.
And so you're coming alongside, you're making sure it's right. But then also, are you saying even potentially, hey, we'll go ahead and submit your payroll for you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I mean,
unbelievable.
Sometimes, I have ideas that turn out to not be executable once we get into the details. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I could see how that could be easily done like that.
Well, that's what I would think. Yeah.
That just makes sense. Right. And so, and it just kind of builds on this idea that none of us are just some ancillary thing that you have no interaction with. Right. Like I always sort of think, when we're either heavy in support or whatever, I'm like, why didn't I build a Netflix? Right. Like, when was the last time I called Netflix and said, hey, it's not streaming fast enough? I'm sure there are people that do that. Right. But I've never reached out to Netflix to support me ever. Cause it's just, that's just not something I would do. Right. But, but people, they spend time with us every single month. And, yeah, we have some customers, I'm sure you do too, that they signed up, they're using it, they love it, and you never hear from them.
Never hear from them. Yeah.
That certainly happens, right? But for a lot of our folks, they talk to us regularly.
Well,
And so we already have a relationship there.
yep.
And so what you're talking about is sort of managed services.
Yeah, exactly.
We can build on that trust that we already cashed in on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things we deal with, I'm sure you're the same way, is simply understanding what is correct. They look at something and they think there's something wrong, and it's right but there's so many elements going on, issue dates, requirements, the nature of the policies, that it's hard to find the right answer.
Yeah.
And so we're better equipped to give those answers much faster. And there's no reason why the agent needs to be involved in that. And so obviously we'd have to figure out, because what you don't want to do is expand so that you've got 20,000 people that can call you at any moment. But you'd want to have it limited to, an individual from each office who does that. But I think if with this kind of service, we could get it so that you have a very professionally managed, tight system around commissions and performance that an agent, business owner can look at and say, that's better than I could do. And
That's right.
It's up to them to on how much they want to engage with it. But we give them the option to not have to engage at all if they don't want to.
That's right. Wow. So I can see that being a very big part of a future piece. I was sitting there thinking about this before we hopped on the podcast, and thinking about what we're doing at Front Runner, and quite frankly, we're probably all on this idea, is that with the rapidly growing, not going anywhere, deal with AI. Right.
Mm-hmm.
People have stopped looking at data in such a linear way,
yes.
right? I type this into Google, I get these results, and in sort of a linear fashion, I'm going to go down the line and try to find the answer, right? Instead, right. Now with AI, it's more conversational, and
yes.
it's predictive, and it's informative, right? And so I know that all of our tools right now are finding ways to help people not just see their data and understand their data, but allow that data to speak in bold ways to their agency, right? I know we've got some things at Front Runner that we're doing for that, to allow the data to actually generate some ideas and some thoughts and some directions, utilizing some of the thought process of AI, right? So I know all of our softwares are starting to say, okay, yep, we do these linear things, A plus B equals C, and they're always going to do that. But there's going to be a rise of tools and components that take data and from a non-linear fashion start helping you be a better agent beyond just understanding what, that the data is this or that, or I pay this or that. So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that piece.
It can be on both sides. It can be on the analysis side and also on the data input side as well. Like imagine if you just instructed on how you wanted your bonus plan to be, for instance, and it understands you. We're currently using AI on the independent side to understand carrier statements, so that we process, thousands of these statements, and there's they're all different formats. So instead of having to linearly be like this is this and this and this, we use AI to understand, oh, this actually means this, etc., which has made it possible to do that. Before it would have probably been impossible.
Absolutely. All right, well, I want to put a cap on the episodes, because man, Seth, it has been so good and so rich. And man, I quite frankly can't wait for people to react to it. But I want to ask you a final question, and then let you say anything else you want to say, because I mean, man, what you got to offer is way better than what I've got to offer. But true or false, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When team members see an agent investing tools for their success, they tend to reciprocate with an increased effort and motivation. Is that a true or false statement?
I think that's 100% true.
Why?
Because they'll value what you value. They model your behavior. And so, for instance, anyone who works with me knows how much I value coming with suggestions rather than just complaints. That's one. They also know that a hot button of mine is, don't tell me that something's hard. I don't care if it's hard. That's why we work. And those values have worked their way down through the organization. Like they've modeled what I find important, and then they replicate that. And so if there's actually research on this that shows that the most likely indicator of achieving a goal is management attention to the goal. And so if they see you invest in tools and you say that this is important to me, that these are the tools that we're going to use to monitor our performance, then they will emulate that. And so I just don't think there's any doubt about that.
There's no doubt, right? I think our conversation probably already answered that question before I even asked it, but I did want to drive home our podcast episode today with that understanding, is to say that when your team sees you are making an investment in them, and understand that a software is an investment in them, or even investing in your agency, or heck, it can be almost anything, slapping a fresh coat of paint on the walls. When they see that you are investing in the business in them, I have never had an instance where they don't reciprocate that. I remember the first, even in my print shops that I own, right? The first day that I owned these print shops, the first thing that I did is that the first one I bought was kind of hoarded. It was just, stuff was everywhere, right? There were like stray animals. It was wild. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that I did is I ordered a 30-yard by 20-yard dumpster, and I spent nothing but the first week of just throwing stuff away. And that simple act of just clearing space, throwing my time away just to clear space and to give them a palette to work on, attitudes changed. They walked in with a pep. There was a smile, right? And so when you pay for software, you pay for a tool, or you do anything in your agency, and it's actually a great litmus test. Your team members will respond with increased effort and motivation. And if there are team members that don't respond that way, then you got the wrong team members.
Yeah,
and that's
I agree with that. Right. I agree with that.
But you might have some unmotivated team members that seem like they're struggling, not because they're the wrong team member, right? But it's because they desperately want to see you continually making investments in them. Yeah. And that's a pretty strong statement, but I think I stand behind it.
No, I totally agree with it. I mean, they want to know that you care. And, like even if it's paying for their insurance licenses, for instance, I know my team responds extremely well to knowing that I pay for their insurance licenses.
Yep.
To me, it seems kind of obvious, as the business owner, they're working for me, et cetera, but it's their license. I don't have to really pay for it. And the gratitude that I get for something that small from them, I think very much proves the point that you're making, that when they see us investing in them to do better, they step it up. That's
right. That's right. Well, hey, Seth, long episode, amazing episode. Any final words for us?
No, I think we've covered everything, but I really appreciate that we've had this conversation. I thoroughly, like I said, this is one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done. Awesome. And it's nice to be able to talk to somebody else who understands it, because it's a very tiny little niche that we're in. And so I think that the clients that we have between the two of us are probably very similarly oriented, in that they're good, dedicated agents that want to do better. And the better job that you and I and the rest of the companies that what we do can help them to reach their goals, the better off we will all be.
We will all be. Yeah. And man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate our relationship. I'll get a text from Seth, or we'll jump on the phone, and it's like I'm not even talking to a competitor. I say like I'm talking to a friend. And it just makes it, man, when it's the old saying, when one boat rises, we all rise.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I truly believe that, and if you're listening to the podcast, if you're watching it on YouTube, but if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, hey, check out Racing Snail, check out Mivation, go to mivation.com. That's MIVATION.com. You're going to see what they're all about. You're going to see why they've been the trailblazer industry leader for 21 years. And so make sure you check out Seth and his team there, doing lots and lots of good stuff. So Seth, thanks again, man, for spending some time with me.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is going to do it for episode number 35. Powerful, wasn't it? Crazy good. Crazy good. Two competitors coming together because we care. Truly care. And I said it on the episode, we're not salty, right? We care, and we want to make sure that we continually help agents do what they do better. And that's with tools and support and encouragement, deeper insight. And I want you to know that we're both making big investments in you. All right. We're not sitting around here collecting your monthly payments. It's just like, we're just collecting monthly payments. No, we are actively, and I know Seth and his team are actively meeting and thinking and drawing it out and at at the planning phase of figuring out how do we produce even more stuff that you're going to love. And so that's the deal. But understand the episode, The False Economy of Going Cheap. Free isn't always cheap. And sometimes free is the worst thing that you can do for your agency. So until next episode number 36, super excited about that episode too. Take care, man, and lead your agency with courage. Lead it for something bigger than you. Lead it for something that will outlast even your life. Until then, take care.